Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. We're going to give folks a chance to arrive. Good morning, Anna. Good morning, Giovanni. Good morning, Mike, Paul, Sarah. Good morning, folks. Good morning, Peter. Yes, good morning. Good morning, Neetu. All right, we're going to give folks a good morning, Jonathan. We're going to give folks a chance to get in, get themselves settled. If anyone has not had their second cup of coffee, I am 2 cups in already.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Carlos. We've got a great session for you this morning. All of the folks who are looking to try and get ahead of the, get one step ahead of the cyber thieves, and people looking to rake us all over the coals are tuned in here. Morning. Alrighty. Well, we're plunged back into the deep freeze, back into the snow after a 70-degree teaser the other day. And a reminder that we are still in the throes of winter. It is still happening to us. We have not clawed our way out yet. Little by little. All right, good morning, Mr. Good. Good morning, Barbara. Julio, good to see you. All right, we'll be getting started in just a sec. Great to see everyone. Good morning for those who just coming up. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. Wonderful to have you. We're going to get started in just a minute. Just letting some other folks arrive here, and I'm just going to give it just another sec, and then we'll get rolling. All right. Excellent, excellent. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. For those of you, anyone here for the first time, the HR Roundtable is a monthly seminar series brought to you by the 10 Positions group of companies. My name is Roger Oliver. I am the Director of Strategic Accounts at 10 Positions. I want to introduce my partner, Brian Bulger of Marsh. Brian and I started the HR Roundtable longer ago than either of us are willing to admit. And you know, we've taken it since the pandemic. We've gone online with it, and we've typically all these years, for many years, just done it in the conference room with coffee and bagels and pastries, and at some point looking to get back to that, at least partially. And in the meantime, wonderful to have you all in a virtual environment. Before we get started, I'm just going to I'm going to just tell you a little bit about temp positions. We are a multifaceted staffing solutions firm. We do temporary, temp to hire, and direct hire across a wide range of skill categories. So it is account positions for accounting and finance staff, CompuForce for IT professionals and a full range of IT solutions. HR Staffing Solutions is our human resources division. So we have, again, people temporary, temp to hire, and direct hire across all major disciplines of HR for when you run out of hands. We've got more hands for you. On-call counsel is our legal division. These are attorneys and paralegals. We do a lot of document review projects, as well as other work. We can also place corporate counsels. We have a very large school footprint, education footprint. Our school professionals division provides substitute teachers for charter schools and private schools. And we also have the exclusive arrangement with the city to provide UPK teachers, preschool teachers, for what was Mayor de Blasio's signature legislation of universal pre-K. So all of those community-based organizations that are running pre-K programs funded by the city, when they're not able to find teachers on their own, which is frankly all the time, that redounds to us. So we are the engine under the hood of the New York City UPK program, largest school system in the country. Convention services, sort of an offshoot of our hospitality division, but everything someone would need for a convention or running a booth there, all the registration, badge people and what have you. Hospitality, we have a thriving hospitality division, front and back of the house, waiters, bartenders, culinary professionals. Temp positions, healthcare, one of our largest divisions. We have a large footprint in the social service environment, providing staff to organizations that provide services to people with developmental disabilities, child welfare, shelter programs, also very active in allied and clinical. And we are staffing the Vaccinate New York project for the entire state of New York, over 4,000 people working at those large vaccination sites. And those are all RNs, LPNs, medical assistants, as well as the administrative staff, coordinating and making sure everyone is where they need to be. Logistics for all things warehouse and warehouse environments. All those boxes that have been showing up to our on our doorsteps for the past 18 months. Temp positions office for administrative and clerical staff of all kinds. And lastly, if the cursor will allow me to get down there to it, sometimes it doesn't want to let me get down to the very bottom there. Don't know. But we have a creative division called the Creative Bureau, which provides people for graphic artists for design and production, as well as all things web driven. So we all need to redo our websites. Our websites become obsolete every 20 minutes these days. So all of the individuals that will help you to have your web game on point. All right, well, we have a great presentation for you this morning. We have Danny Mizrahi of Contango IT. And I've known Danny for many, many years. And Danny's service helps people to manage their IT function from top to bottom, and then also provides a full suite of specialty services, one of them being cybersecurity, which is our topic for the day. And with that, I will leave you in the very capable hands of Mr. Danny Mizrahi. And I will stop sharing, so Danny, you can take over.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely a pleasure and an honor. And like Roger said, I've known Roger and Brian for probably about a decade at least now. And, two of the pros of pros in their respective industries and thought leaders and et cetera, et cetera. The purpose today is just to give you tools to be able to talk to your IT. If you are a decision maker that's pushing change and IT security forward, then it's great. This will be some really good tips and tricks. And if you're in HR, then, which probably most of you are in HR, then hopefully you could talk to leadership about some of these extremely important takeaways. And that's the goal here, some takeaways. And also I would love for it to be interactive. So feel free to throw some questions in the chat. So let's just dive in. I'm going to do a brief introduction, very, very brief, because it gets boring quickly. But I have two companies, about 100 people between the two companies, experts in 4 areas: IT support, help desk, outsourced CIO, CTO services, mostly for small businesses where we just take over all the IT function. The second area is custom programming, application development, mobile apps, web apps, custom connectors, dashboards, things like that. The third area is cybersecurity. We're going to dive deep into that, although I'm going to explain how, a lot of what people think is cybersecurity is just regular IT. And we're going to get into that, and I'm going to explain the difference between the two. And we have about 50 people there in just doing cybersecurity now. It's definitely our largest area of growth. And then not so sexy business of building out office space all over the tri-state area, a little bit in Philly and LA, but we do build out a lot of office space in terms of the IT function, the wiring, et cetera. Okay, so about us, I should probably change this, about 100 people now between the two companies, over 300 clients, a whole bunch of awards, including the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America. Super proud of that. Okay, so this is really the slide that's the meat and potatoes here, and a lot of it's going to be verbal, and I want you to ask questions, and we're going to go through a couple of things. So actually, Roger, was a good example of why the first one is so important here. Most people think that this list is called cybersecurity. And I just want to make sure, except for information security policies, which we'll get into, this is really just must have IT for a business. If your businesses don't have each of these things, then you're lacking on 2 areas. 1, basic security, and 2, compliance 101, right? So cybersecurity to me is compliance, right? And so you've heard things like SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or if you do business in Europe, you've heard of GDPR, the privacy policy. There's tons of privacy policies, right? New York has the SHIELD Act. California has the CCPA, California Consumer Protection Act. Now they have CCPA too, the sequel. Texas has the TXCPA. Massachusetts has a bunch. You've probably heard of HIPAA. HIPAA is a privacy policy for healthcare, PHI, personal healthcare information. You probably heard of HIPAA, right? So that's to me is the cybersecurity. Also penetration testing. We have 20, actually about 30 now, penetration testers. 10 of them are certified ethical hackers, okay, and doing things like risk assessments. And we have a 98% success rate with hacking. So you can imagine pretty much we get in and we tell you how we got in, right? And that's our jobs. So that to me is cybersecurity, but the list here is must have IT. So let's start at the top. And I'm going to try to keep the chat open just in case people are chatting. So 2FA, MFA, would love to see a show of hands, but I don't think that's possible of how many people have 2FA set up. So 2-factor authentication is when you get that code, right? You log into your email from a new device and you get a code saying, here's a 6-digit code and whatnot. And that's critical. You have to have that. And one of the reasons why is like, Roger, we were talking about earlier, I basically told Roger his passwords on the spot, and I'm happy to do that with other people. If you have an email address that's like 6-7 years old at least, obviously older is better, but newer, you might not be on there, but I could run a dark web report and basically we can live demo me telling you your passwords or chatting them to you and go ahead, Roger.
And let me just say, I was shocked when Danny logged on to the dark web with with me on. on the phone, or maybe we were on Zoom, and he started reading me off all of my passwords.
Right, not just one.
It's a sobering thing when that happens, when you realize how unsecure you actually are. And in our case, despite our two-prong authorization as well. So I guess those are probably different elements, but
yeah.
but go ahead through Dan.
Yeah, no problem. So it's not just email though anymore. And first of all, the reason why I have, probably most, if not all of your passwords that I can get access to them through the dark web is because people use the same password pretty much everywhere. Unfortunately, that's just something people do. I see a question from Mike here. Are the securely generated passwords built into web browsers pretty effective to use? The short answer to that is sure, right? Like that's a great password. It's a crazy password. It's up, uppercase, lowercase, number, question mark, right? But you still need two-factor authentication, because that website that you just logged into, if I showed you the dark web reports, you'll see that it's websites like LinkedIn and Dropbox and Houzz and Etsy, a lot of passwords that I'm just going to mark this question as done. I've never done that before. How cool is that? So a lot of the websites that you frequent, those are the ones getting hacked. Now, okay, so if your Etsy account gets logged into, okay, probably it's not the end of the world, but I don't know. I don't think you want people in your Etsy account, right? And so yes, so it's a little safer to use the password generated, but two-factor authentication on everything is just a must. Like we wouldn't, for us and our clients, if they said, I don't really want two-factor authentication, we are not keeping them as a client. And that's a good transition to this next one here called security awareness training. So what is security awareness training? So basically, if your organization is not doing this, I love that HR is usually the ones that were, because the HR sent out, sexual harassment training, at least in the New York area, right? So, and I don't know how widespread sexual harassment training is as far as being mandatory in other states. I know in New York it's mandatory, but we show the security awareness training to the HR team and say, okay, now that you're done with the sexual harassment training, I need you to send this right out afterwards. And they're like, what is it? So security awareness training is basically watching videos and taking tests on phishing and spoofing and what's a real website, what's a fake website, how to know if it's a real website, fake website, et cetera. I'm going to skip slides for a second because I'm going to show you an example here of, I'm going to come back, but so these are two emails that I clicked on. So obviously everyone in my company was making fun of me because it popped up that I was the offender. But as soon as I saw this, I was like, who the heck is Cynthia Joyner and why did she give me $20? So I clicked on it but what I was supposed to see here was it's Venmo, not Venmo. So that's what I was supposed to be looking for. And on the one on the right, this looks perfect, by the way. I mean, I get Amazon, Quantum, whatever they are, emails all the time. But what I was supposed to do is I was supposed to hover over the links and see where they go. And they went to a web page. Both of these, in this case, went to a web page that said, luckily, this is Contango IT's training program. Luckily, we're the good guys, but this could have been really bad. So let me just go back here. So what we force all of our clients to do, it's pretty, and by the way, this is compliance 101. There's no privacy act on the planet. There's no, like even in New York, we have the good governance doc by the Attorney General for nonprofits. We have the SHIELD Act for privacy. And I'll get into more compliance. There's children's compliance, FERPA, COPA. There's obviously privacy for healthcare like HIPAA, and there's government privacy, FedRAMP, CMMC. Every single compliance requirement on the planet, security awareness training is mandatory. So there's no option anymore. You have to do security awareness training in your organization. Now it's about how you're going to do it, right? And then what happens is in our program, and this is not just us, but a lot of IT companies, every 2 weeks, not at the same time because that would be silly, but every 2 weeks randomly, someone's going to get an email in your organization. Everyone's going to get an email in your organization that looks like those emails that I just showed you, having them click something, go to a web page about wire transfer fraud. I can tell you so many stories about wire transfer fraud. It's so sad. And again, that's one of those reasons for two-factor authentication, right? Because What happens is, and it's a lot of real estate law firms, anyone doing big transactions like down payments of homes, or a lot of lawyers. But as soon as they get that password for your email, they sit in the inbox and they wait and they wait and they wait and they wait. And then as soon as the down payment of a home is about to happen, they create filters in the inbox that says if it's coming from this banker or to this lawyer, and vice versa. Skip the inbox and go to a folder called ZZ. So it's at the bottom of the Outlook or Gmail folder list, right? So you can't see it. And then they change the routing number, and it happens all the time. Luckily now the bankers are a little smarter, but I've seen it. I saw a bank, I'm not going to say who they were, and this was a while ago, but very, very dumb situation where the bank sent 11 emails. 11 times the banker said to the lawyer, something's fishy about this routing number. Can you please call us to confirm it's correct? And the lawyer, this hacker pretending to be a lawyer, basically said, nope, nothing to see here. Nothing's wrong here. Just go ahead and push the wire through 11 times. And after 11 times refusing to pick up the phone, the bank sent the wire. So it's like something, common sense ain't so common, right? So it's just, that's why another reason why two-factor authentication is so important, and security awareness training is so important. And then the next one, encrypted emails and portals. Remember, just shout out some questions if you have them in the Q&A or the chat. And Roger, if I'm like rambling and you see a question come up, just feel free to interrupt me.
I'm looking for questions, and please,
good.
feel free to dive in, folks. We want to have this be interactive, and we want to make sure that you have your questions answered, and don't assume, as they always say, there's like the only dumb question is the one you don't ask.
Yeah, and if I'm getting too right, if I'm getting too technical, yeah.
This is a lot of stuff that most people don't know, and I am following along with this as well, and I will have questions as well. So don't be shy, folks. Okay, we have a question.
Good.
All right.
Clients that use Office. Yep.
Yeah. So clients that use Office 365, what are our encryption options? As an HR director, how do I know or use encryptions in my emails?
Great question. That was a leading question, because that was the next bullet here: encrypted emails and portals. So fantastic timing here. So Mike, so there's something in Office 365 called DLP. That's what we're going to talk about. It's called data loss protection, which frankly, it kind of sounds like a backup solution. It's not a backup solution. It's to protect PII, personal identifiable information, or PHI, personal healthcare information. So those are things like social security numbers, date of birth. I mean, in some places like Europe, a phone number and a name is PII, right? So what happens is, and by the way, most people that own or that use Office 365, they own this feature. It's not like at most it's like an extra $2 to set it up. So what we usually do for our clients, and it's not every client, some clients don't want it and don't feel like they need it because they don't have a compliance requirement. And I kind of get it, and we talk about it a lot, but eventually all businesses are going to have to do it because privacy is out of control right now in terms of Privacy Act all over the country. And the government has said they're going to create their own Privacy Act. So it's going to be pretty much mandatory for good. But anyway, what we usually do is set up for our clients, to answer your question, Mike, is there's 2 triggers. So trigger number 1 is if anyone puts the word confidential in the subject, let me rewind for a second. What are we talking about when we talk about a secure portal and encrypted emails? So the best example is your tax returns. So most people in here have received a tax return or something from their bank that says, click on this link to go to the portal to retrieve the file or look at the email. That's what we're talking about here, encrypted emails and encrypted portals for emails. So that's what we're talking about, those emails that basically say, okay, go to this website and then retrieve, but you got to be careful where the link goes, right? So it's like a double whammy. You got to do your training, make sure it's a real link. So So the option one is to set up a keyword, a trigger. Sometimes it's confidential, sometimes it's secure, whatever that you want that word to be, and that'll automatically go to the secure portal. And then the other one is just it scans every single email for PII, every email and every attachment automatic. That's what the banks use. So that's why you'll get an email from your banker and it'll be like, what the heck was in here? That was so important. And it was like a random 4-digit number that maybe their system thought it was the last 4 digits of your bank account, right? So, so those are the two native options in Office 365 for that. And Mike, just let me know if I didn't answer your question. I thought I saw another one. Yes, the recording. Yep. Okay. So that's encrypted emails, encrypted portals. The next section I wanted to cover was backup and disaster recovery, and being very specific here, that backup is not disaster recovery. These are two totally, completely different things. So I know a lot of times I have business owners say, oh, it's okay, we're backed up, we're backed up, we're backed up. And then I say to them something like, all right, so I love that your data is backed up. Okay, don't get me wrong, backup is great. But let's, God forbid, let's pretend, God forbid, there's a flood, a fire, your office is inaccessible, et cetera, et cetera. How do you keep working? And that's when they go, well, I guess I would go home, right? Everyone would go home, they could work from home, right? And I guess we would download the data that was, on the server. And by the way, servers are, when I first met Roger and Brian, we were only doing cloud consulting 12 years ago. It was a long, long time ago. And there's still servers out there all the time. People have application servers all the time, not just in-house, but also cloud servers all the time, right? In Amazon and et cetera, et cetera. So, those servers need to be backed up very differently for disaster recovery. God forbid, flood, fire, Amazon goes down, which has happened. We have clients that back up, from Amazon too. Microsoft goes down, we have clients that back up from Microsoft too. Or your server in-house, or your network, or your office, or your files, et cetera, in your office, right? Are gone, right? Not is the data backed up, but how quickly are you able to keep working? That's disaster recovery. And, just to show you this, like, slide here, I'll come back to this, but this is for all of our clients and all, not all IT companies, but the good ones should definitely be doing this. Like, this is a doctor's office. This is where all the data is on the left side. This is the recovery point. We talk about recovery point objective, recovery time objective. Recovery point is like how far back can you go? Recovery time is how quickly can you be up and running, your recovery time, right? And we want them in their servers to be up and running within a few hours. Like, this is in the event that the whole it's a plastic surgeon. The whole plastic surgery office disappears. How could they keep working? And they will be working in 4 hours, and we tested out with them. So that's disaster recovery, because if they just had quote unquote backup, the data is elsewhere, but you can't use it. And what good is that? It's good for, good to have a backup of your data, but you don't want it. And we used to say it's 10 days to get a server. Now you can't even get a computer for 10 days. It's insane out there with supply chain. We can't get routers, firewalls, 3-4 months to get like our favorite firewall now. We have to switch firewalls because of that for our clients. So supply chain and on all that stuff is a little out of control too. So there is a huge difference between backup and disaster recovery. Go ahead.
We have a question here
from
Natalie asking, lately we've been on the receiving end of so many of these cyber phishing attempts and attacks, and I'm extremely frustrated. Realistically, is this a game we can win?
Well, so there's some improvements you can do with your email settings. Setting up SPF records, makes it so it minimizes that. Like,
what's an SPF? What is an SPF record?
It's like otherwise known as a spoofing record. So basically, I don't want to get too technical because there's no way that it's basically you could ask your IT company. Here's the thing, right? Like, let's say you get an email, Natalie, from one of your peers, and it looks like it came from that person exactly, even though if you click the down button and it's like from xyz@yahoo.com, right? You've probably seen those kinds of emails before. That means the SPF records aren't set up properly. So that's something to reach out for your IT about. So there's some tips and tricks and tools. There's Microsoft has ATP, Advanced Threat Protection. That's like advanced spam filtering. So that's something that you can do. So you can set up all these tools to win this war. I think that's the terminology used. but it won't stop. You still have to be smart, and you have to call someone. Hey, is that, like, I got a Facebook video message the other day from a friend, and I was like, this does not look right. So I texted her, with my cell phone, and I was like, hey, Emily, is that a real video that you just sent me on Facebook? And she was like, yeah, it's hilarious. Check it out. So then I watched it, and it was hilarious. So, but I'm like, super paranoid of clicking anything anymore. Facebook Messenger, Instagram, DM, whatever you want to do. I'm not clicking on anything without calling someone. So it's a war that, to be honest with you, it just becomes native. I'm not like annoyed by it. I just like, hey, is that real? Yeah, it's real. Okay, cool. So I think winning the war is kind of like getting over it and just like making sure you do it, kind of thing. Something in the chat. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay, great. No, my pleasure. So that's backup and disaster recovery. So information security policies. This is an example of the ISO 27001 framework. So the bold ones are the ones that most of our small businesses have, but any certainly public companies are mandatory to have all of these, basically. And
what is this?
big
What is this list, Danny? What is this list?
This is a list of policies that a company would have, right? So an information, security management system policy, or here's easy ones, right? Like password policy, right? Your your HR often sends an employee handbook. And a lot of the employees' handbook will have some of this access control policy. When are you allowed to, access the machines from home, or user access management? That's an IT policy. So there's a lot of these are. I'm trying to think of what of the most popular ones here, and a lot of people are seeing these supplier audit questionnaires. So if you're a lot of times HR, or really COO, CFO, CEO, definitely in sales, are getting these what's called vendor requirement letters from your biggest clients and stopping you from closing deals. But this is now when we're getting into cybersecurity compliance, right? So most of our clients, even I have a 5-person marketing shop that they were doing business with Aflac, and Aflac, sent them a 250 question spreadsheet. It's like 15 tabs in a spreadsheet. And it basically says you have to fill out every single one of these questions in order to be our marketing vendor, because we're sending you PII. We're sending you the names and addresses of our staff, right? And you're sending them, we have another marketing company out of Austin, Texas, and his client was Estee Lauder, and he lost the deal. He lost the deal because imagine all these public companies, everyone's working from home now. So if the HR team wants to send someone a welcome to the company, gift basket with the, company logo on a cup and a t-shirt, etc., all of a sudden the marketing company that's providing the tchotchkes, whatever you want to call them, is it has PII, and it has a public company's PII. So now all of a sudden, you have to go 100% on compliance and all of these policies, right? So information security policies, working with maybe a lawyer or a compliance expert to know which are the ones that are right for you. I will tell you, in my business, in the compliance business, it is absolutely a requirement-driven business. Most people don't buy anything over here at GRSee. I mean, at Contango, people buy all the time great IT. You need, the companies need to have great IT. But for compliance and cybersecurity, people generally don't buy anything from us unless they have to, unless they're told you absolutely have to do this or I will not be your client anymore. A lot of times it's coming from upstream. Or governance, right? The name of the company is GRSee. It's a play on words for the acronym GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance. But governance and compliance is, what we're talking about here in terms of must do, or you either break the law like HIPAA or you lose business. And that's very, very common. Sometimes people buy risk aversion from us. What is that? Penetration testing, ethical hacking, risk assessments, code review of applications, and things like that. We'll get a little bit more into that too.
Let's pause for a second. Does anyone have any questions that we want to pop in here? All right, no questions at the moment, but please think to ask them while we've got the expert here. So
yep.
You want to get Get your questions in.
Yep.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
So
dive in, Dan.
Yep. The next thing. Okay. The next thing here is onboarding and offboarding documentation. So, for all of our clients, as part of onboarding them as a client, the first thing we're going to do, we do a whole bunch of things, but one of the things that we do is creating an onboarding documentation, right? When someone's starting, they need this type of computer, they need this kind of security, they need this kind of email, they need to be on these distribution lists, they need this type of signature, they need this phone number and extension, they need these types of files, they need access QuickBooks, right? So more important is offboarding. You can say something, Roger?
Yeah, you froze for a second. Can you say that last piece again?
Yeah. Offboarding. I was saying offboarding is even more important than onboarding sometimes. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in offboarding, what we're talking about is locking someone out. First of all, obviously, if it's a disgruntled employee, you need to be able to lock them out of everything and shut down the computer and wipe it, within seconds, right? But that's basically standard. And that goes back to some of those policies from before too. So, some of the policies are, if you are, like, for example, because we're an IT company, yeah, of course we give like severance packages and stuff, but we can't give people warnings that, we're letting them go. We have to just lock them out and then explain to them, hey, because they have access to our clients' machines, and we would be, risking our compliance requirements with our clients if we didn't lock, employees that knew they were going to get terminated, out right away, right? And so those are some of the examples of onboarding and offboarding documentation. And similarly, mobile device management is, how much data do you have on your cell phones now? It's a lot of data, right? So making sure that those are encrypted, and that goes to encrypted hardware as well. So I love that people think, well, I have this is very common, and it's not like stupid to think this. It's common to think this, but most people think that I have a laptop and it has a username and password, and I can't log in. No one can get my data unless they log in to the username with the username and password. But what they don't know is if the hard drive is not encrypted, I can just take out the hard drive and look at the data. The hard drive needs to be encrypted. So, for all of our clients that have mobile, technically even the hard drives in the office now are supposed to be encrypted as well, especially if you have compliance requirements, but certainly laptops. And there's a lot of laptops out there right now because everyone's working from home and then coming into the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week or 1 day a week, whatever it is. So most people are just using laptops now with docking stations, et cetera, right? All of those need to have hard drive encryption. And that comes native in Mac. It comes native in Windows. You just need to set it up. So it's just a policy to set it up. And speaking about those machines, monitoring, patching, asset tagging, et cetera, this is just, you got to have control over the machines, like understand your inventory. Where is everything? Being able to, now let's talk about patching, right? So you guys probably know what patching is. But it as like Windows updates, right? So Windows updates or Mac updates, right? That's called patching. Those are patches. And what do patches do? Patches patch holes in security, right? So what happens is that the latest, we always say with antivirus and firewall, antivirus, firewall, and now it's with all software, you're only as good as your last patch or update. Why? Because the latest threat, the latest security concern, the most severe security concern, the patch is the one that just came out to prevent that, right? So you'll see now on your mobile devices, like I have a Pixel, on my Pixel, it says, please restart your computer. We installed a very important, a security update. So we have to restart. So if any of my clients don't restart their computers, or any of my end users at my clients, any employee that we're managing has a security patch and has not rebooted their computer, within a couple of days or hours, depending on the patch, usually it's like 7 days at most, that's like the critical one, then someone from my help desk is going to call them and say, I'm sorry to bug you, but I really need you to reboot your computer because it's a security issue. And you got to get that patch in. So that is patching and monitoring of the machines for things like other people trying to log in multiple times with the wrong password, right? We see all that. You got to watch all of that as well. So any questions on the easily achievable must-have IT? I see that we're not boring everyone to the point where they've left because the attendee count is still the same. So I'm proud of that at least. But I would love if anyone has questions, or we could dive into, the next thing was really cybersecurity, which I know seems like we've been doing that the whole time, but it really is quite different, believe it or not. This
I
was
thought I saw
an
a raised
example of. Go
hand.
ahead.
I thought I saw a raised hand
Oh, okay.
from John. Did you, John? Did you have your question
He was
answered?
just going woot woot.
Oh, John, good.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
he was
All right.
going. He was going whoop whoop. Okay,
Okay.
he's all
Got
good.
it. Look. Okay. Good. Yeah. John. Good. His last name is Good. Okay. Wow. I didn't. Okay. Excellent. So example. These were. I was talking about mobile device management. That's we basically use either Intune if it's a Mix shop or Jamf if it's an only Mac shop. These are the most popular tools out there. So
We have a
again,
question here.
Yep.
Got a
Go
question.
for it.
It says yes from Esther asking, do you recommend using other encryption product even when you have Office 365?
So I would say that recommend using. I mean, it depends on your compliance requirements and how deep you have to go. But I'll say, Mimecast is probably one of the most popular ones that, tons of, companies use. So you can check out Mimecast for some added protection. But I will say that it's not as common anymore because Office 365 went all in on all of these things, right? They want you to buy their DLP for an extra $2 a month, and they want you to buy ATP for an extra $1 a month, right? So, I would say, 9 out of 10 businesses, probably higher than that, more than 90%, will be fine with the native tools that are in Office 365 or Google Workplace, formerly known as G Suite. So because they have those tools also. And then Mike asked, are there good resources or links to bring to our IT about some of these things? I don't know. I know we don't do many of these. I'm geeking up against problem. We don't know. So I guess these slides are like not that great because they're just high level. But I have this article that I'll put in the chat that I'll put it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Public. I think
I don't know if everyone can. I don't know if this the webinar format of everyone can see the questions themselves, but I will read Mike's so that everyone can hear what he asked. He said, "Are there any good resources or links to bring to our IT about some of these things? I know we don't do many of these things, and I'm geeky enough to get in trouble and know that we don't. But I'm not an expert at all, so." So go ahead, Danny. You were saying these are what you've got here as
yep.
level.
So I'm gonna try to get you something that's like a decent article that I made at I don't know, some bank. I'm gonna try to get you the chat and put it in there, but you can send that article to your IT CIO and be like, hey, I saw this guy present, here's just an article that was written up with some must-have IT, and then I can do it. By the way, anyone here that wants to do a follow-up call and talk more about tech,
sure,
that's my job. So
yeah, excellent. And Yolanda asks, she said, this is a lot of vital information. Thank you. We use Google Drive for basically everything. What types of vulnerabilities are there for G Suite?
Everything I talked about is identical to G Suite as it would be for Office 365. To me, they're one and the same. It's just there's a little bit of technical background on setting it up. But to me, they're identical for all intents and purposes. You still need to do all of the things that we spoke about. There's no reason not to. We use it too, by the way. Internally, we use Google Workplace, so it's fine as long as it's set up properly and all of the things around it. Remember, the two-factor authentication and the security awareness training are numbers 1 and 2. About 99% of issues are because people don't follow the training that they're supposed to be doing, and they don't have two-factor authentication set up. So some of the other ones, like the encrypted messaging, if you lose someone's data, you have compliance to deal with and legal to deal with. Like in New York, if you lose data, you're supposed to, the SHIELD Act, which is the Stop Hacks and Improve Electronic Data Act in New York, basically it's a breach notification policy. So it says if you did lose any data, you got to tell your whole database about it. And if you don't do that, then you get fined like $250 per person in your database, up to something like $250,000. Now, is everyone taking Shield seriously in all of New York State? Absolutely not. It's very hard for us to sell Shield compliance. Why? Because nobody's gotten fined by New York. But I believe that it's an important, the idea behind it is super important. They say New York's coming out with their own privacy act called New York Privacy Act, which was the point of Shield. So I don't know what the heck is that. Anyway, it's all very confusing because you got the state not talking to the city and, regular politics. So every state has two privacy policies because they didn't know each one was, working on it, right? So, but let's talk about compliance and cybersecurity. To me, it's funny, like this is what cybersecurity is to me, being in the business, right? But obviously everything we've been talking about is sort of like cybersecurity to most people. So, requirements, that's the name of the game in cybersecurity and compliance. You'll know when you have a requirement because you're going to be told by your biggest client, hey, I can't work with you anymore until you fill out the spreadsheet, or I can't work with you anymore until you become SOC 2 certified. Like we have the 75th largest accounting firm in the United States was not SOC 2 certified, and their biggest public companies basically said, we're leaving you to go to, the big 4 or big 50 or whatever it is, because we can't do business with you anymore because you're not SOC 2 certified and you're handling our financials. And so and SOC 2 takes about a year because it takes a long time. And I'm not going to get into the details, but there's a 6-month observation period where the auditor watches your business for 6 months for you to get SOC 2 compliant. So there's no time like today, to start your compliance. And what happens is most businesses, like, you mentioned IT director. Someone mentioned, I wish my IT director was on this call. IT directors don't know this business. Okay, this is a totally different business. This is only CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, CISOs. This is the CISO business. This is not the IT director business. The first part was the IT director business. That's IT all day, every day. But this part is the CISO business, Chief Information Security Officer business, and it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of compliance, it's a lot of policies, and it's a lot of procedures. And that's what cybersecurity is to me. And to me, cybersecurity is compliance. So CMMC and FedRAMP are government compliance, HIPAA and high trust or healthcare compliance. PCI, you've probably seen this, term, PCI compliance, that's the credit card compliance. And, so GRC, you see a lot of letters here and the deal, a lot of letters mean you're really smart. And by the way, none of these are my letters, but they're the company letters and, all this actual smart people we have at the company. But like you see certified ethical hacker or QSA, qualified security assessor. So, we're the actual auditors for the PCI Council. So we guide people on minimizing the scope of their compliance. We're the actual auditors for ISO 27001, and then the privacy piece, ISO 27701 on top of it. Same thing with SWIFT and international banking. Those are more compliance. Same thing with the Motion Picture Association. Believe it or not, someone needs to make sure that there's no leaks in a blockbuster movie, and that's a cybersecurity company that does that, right? So, what if every time the Lord of the Rings came out or whatever, fancy movie, that everything was being leaked, right? It wouldn't go that well for the Motion Picture Association, right? So there's auditing for that as well. So there's just tons of different compliance requirements. I see a number 2 in the chat box here. Oh, thank you. That's my contact info. Perfect.
Yeah. Follow up with Danny.
Good. So any questions about compliance, right? So you might get these letters from investors. If you're, we have a lot of tech companies that, their investors say, look, I'm okay with investing $5, $10, $20 million in a seed round with you, or a Series A, B, et cetera. But you got to be buttoned up in terms of cybersecurity and your app, right? Like everyone has these mobile apps on their phones, right? Like, so your app needs to be 100% bulletproof, right? And again, we have a 98% success rate with hacking. So we're going to show them, how we got in. But remember, when you're doing penetration testing, you're also looking, here's a really good example of what happens during an application tier penetration test. We're looking for information disclosure as well. What does that mean? Here's a perfect example. So you've clicked the forgot password link on a website a million times, right? Everyone here has clicked the forgot password link on a website. Now, if that website has PII in it, personal identifiable information, in most states, you're not allowed to have that say we've reset your password and sent it to you in your email. It has to say, if you are a user in our system, we have reset your password and sent you an email. Because if it just says we've reset your password and sent you an email, then you're telling that quote unquote hacker or anyone, you're telling the person that this is a user in the system, and that is considered information disclosure, right? So there's little things like that that we're also looking for when doing things like a risk assessment or a penetration test, especially for an application that has PII, personal identifiable information, or personal healthcare information. So any questions? I think we're kind of running out of the material. It's a lot of stuff,
right.
you know, but
Well, let me ask a few. So,
Yeah.
So what folks don't, here's one. From Barbara, this is useful to share with IT, good for HR to be aware, but very technical. At a later point, will we address basics for HR recommendations for the employee handbook, policies, and employee training?
Great. Yeah, so we could go back to that slide. So which policies HR is going to be in charge of here? You know, we're really kind of focused on the cybersecurity and IT aspect of all of this.
So recommendations for the employee handbook and training. What can people act on here that kind of falls in there within their responsibilities?
So I'm not totally the most qualified person to answer that, you know, truth be told. But I will say that the takeaway is that if there's no compliance officer in the business or someone handling compliance and guiding HR in this, that would be the starting point. And I think that's super important, you know. So you know, I apologize for being a little techie here. We kind of thought that, you know, maybe this would be at a reach a little bit for HR professionals, but we wanted to do the best we can. In terms of, I was going to answer the other question in terms of, you know, I'm going to put, you know, know before. I'm putting this just there. If you just Google this, it's called know before. That's probably the most popular security awareness training platform out there. And so you could go to IT and be like, hey, if you're in HR and you haven't been getting these videos to watch and you haven't been getting fake emails, it's a red flag for sure. And you go over to your IT director or anyone who's going to listen and say, hey, we need to implement security awareness training, not just because it's the most important and probable way people are going to hack us or create massive damage to our organization, but also it's a compliance requirement in pretty much all 50 states at this point. And so it's a common sense requirement and it's a compliance requirement. So I would say that this would be a nice lighting the fire under the you know what for IT. And know before is you could Google that, you know, right there. It'll come up right away in terms of getting it done. So Barbara, I hope that at least answers that question. And then certainly there's got to be someone that's, you know, can help. Wait, I'm going backwards instead of forward. Certainly there's someone that can maybe, you know, help with which ones that you need. But frankly, you don't want to just do the ones HR need. If you're going to dive into this world, you might as well kind of get most of the ones that you need done at the same time, because they're going to reference each other. So it's important to have a united approach.
I have a question for you, Danny.
Sure.
And what all of you don't know is that Danny is actually out of the country right now and doing this presentation for us. Okay. And so what are some, and given the fact that all of us are working in such either fully remote or hybrid situations, you are remote, are there any things that we need to know regarding the just the working in a remote environment? I've always heard like horror stories, don't plug into a hotel Ethernet with your laptop.
Okay, so truth be told, so my computer's set up that if this Wi-Fi here wasn't secure, I wouldn't be able to do this. So that's why I had to test a couple of days in advance. So my computer's set up for that now. Truth be told, if it didn't work, I'd probably call my IT and be like, hey, I need to do this presentation. You better figure it out. Or frankly, I would have downloaded the presentation. But let me answer the question for the majority of the situation. I use my hotspot on my phone everywhere I go. I'll never go into a Starbucks and use the Starbucks Wi-Fi or anything like that.
Okay.
You know,
Why not? Why not?
Well, so basically, let's say someone's sitting there with a router and changes their password name to their SSID. The SSID is the name of the wireless network to Starbucks Open 2, right?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're connecting to their Wi-Fi, and there's a variety of tools that they can use just to be looking at what's going on in your computer, or it's looking at traffic, or this, that, and the other thing, right? So for me, I use my phone. It's a secure connection. It's got a password on it, and I use a 5G hotspot. That's what I did.
Okay.
And the computers that we lock down for our clients are going to have to do that as well. You know, some of them, I mean, the ones that have government contracts and stuff, you have to whitelist. And actually, Alex, your question, I'm going to talk about whitelisting in terms of email as well. You have to whitelist the IP address of the office and the IP address of your home, and make sure you can only use the laptop in those two locations. The IP address is basically, it's called an internet address, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Alex, similarly to your question, I sometimes, I send external emails, and sometimes it goes to spam. So spam in general, you could go to, if you go to pull it up, you could see if you go ahead.
So yeah, so Alex asks, I send external emails, and sometimes it goes to spam, even if even after they reply. Is it related to security permissions, or something not configured correctly on any back?
There could, so there could be so first and foremost, and by the way, this is a good time if you want me to see if I know your passwords. If you have an email address, not a Gmail. Actually, I can do Gmail now. I just realized I could do the Gmails and stuff, but those are almost too easy. So if you have a business address and you want to send me your email address from your business, I could do the dark web scans and see, we could do a live demo kind of thing. But let me go to, so if you are worried about, am I sharing my screen here? No, resume share. So if you wanted to go to, it's called MX Toolbox. You could Google blacklist check or RBL, real-time blacklist. It's called RBL. And you put in, your domain here, you could see if you're on spam filters or spam lists. And if you're on spam lists and spam filters, then, you got to go through a process to get off of those. And those processes are kind of terrible. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is sometimes you just need to call your client and say, hey, can you add us to the whitelist? And sometimes it's a variety of different reasons that could happen. Sometimes there's a picture in the signature that the email systems don't like, and they're like, hey, you got to get that picture off of your signature, and because it's making every single one of your emails go to spam, and so you go on a whitelist, right? So because sometimes those links and those pictures go to a website, and maybe that website's not secure, right? So there's I mean, really the answer is you got to talk to your IT and see why you're going to spam so much. And then you call your client and you say, hey, can you tell IT to whitelist our domain? And hopefully they'll do that for you, right? So there's a couple different things here. Now the next question, I love this one.
Here's a question. Yeah. So what about connected devices such as Google Home or Amazon Echo or Ring camera devices? Are they hackable? And can they be a gateway for hackers to access the greater network?
Absolutely, and that's why you need to have, you're not gonna. Can you hear me? Okay.
Roger, yeah. You froze for a sec, but I can.
Okay, sure. I just plugged in the power. I think that made it happen. So first of all, yes, everything's hackable. That's the easy one. So two-factor authentication on your wireless network, those are mandatory, right? And also like not going with your, Verizon wireless, right? So in my home, I go with Google Wi-Fi. Now there's a debate, can Google hear and see everything that I'm doing at all times? Maybe, probably. But I use Google Wi-Fi with a mesh network in my home, right? So I have access points all over the place, and it says it's secure. It's using a very, very complex password to get into my network. So that's what I would do. And that's what, that's what most people do at homes. But I will say that the thermostat, so a big thing we're getting a ton of business from real estate right now because of thermostat hacking. A lot of restaurants, it's basically ransomware. You've heard of ransomware where they lock your files and you have to pay a Bitcoin to retrieve those files. So it's the same thing with thermostats now. We've had restaurants saying, hey, I don't know what to do. I mean, they're telling me they're going to keep making it hot in the summer and cold in the winter, with our air conditioner and stuff until we pay them a Bitcoin or whatever, right? So there's those issues. We got a residential building the other day on Greenwich Street in Manhattan, a very, very, very high-end residential building whose elevators got hacked. And, you have this like 50-floor building, very, very high end, multi-million dollar apartments. And they walking up 40 flights because the elevators got hacked, right? So, what do you do about that one, right? So, we have management companies now calling us and being like, what the heck was that? Like, are we supposed to worry about that now? Yeah, everyone needs to be worried about their smart homes and their smart infrastructure being hacked, for sure, if it's running a business, without a doubt, especially. And you've seen the scary stories on people looking at your cameras, and it's another reason why you got to make sure that some people, I don't have the camera, like the thing in front of the camera, making it so that it's hidden, but there's a light there that says if it's on, and also I never connect to not secure networks, obviously. So, yeah. So in the chat is gotta hop off, Yolanda. Oh, Yolanda, I'm curious, how long have you had that email address? Let's see if it comes up on the dark web. That'll be fun. Right here. Almost 4 years. It's a little young, we say, but let's see. I'm going to do futuremediagroup.org. Generate the report. Oh, I'm not sharing, right? Okay. I paused it. Good. All right. So it's downloaded. Okay. I know a lot of people in here. Let's see if yours is in here. What was it? Why? Yolanda, right? Yolanda, you are not in here, but I certainly have Valeria, and I have Sean, and I have N. Blumberg, and I have M. Shaveco. I have a whole bunch in here, but not yours. I have Emily's. I have A. Wimmers. Yeah, so I have a whole bunch of theirs, but I don't have yours on here.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking when you actually you've got Danny reading off your stuff. Here's a question from Mike. What is the best way to evaluate an IT department? I know that we aren't meeting compliance or security demands, but I don't have the knowledge to actually bring it to leadership.
On that article that I'm going to send over, let me see if my team chatted it to me. Here, I'm going to put it in the chat right now. Okay. So maybe something like this, right? Here's a banking, an article that I did on this bank, First Republic, and it's kind of like the IT basics. So you could always send that over to management and say, I just, again, I watched this guy present, and I don't think we're doing anything that he's talking about. Obviously I could do a call with leadership anytime. If it's in the tri-state area, come visit in person, do a Zoom, whatever's clever. But yeah, I would say that article is probably a good starting point of must-have IT that we say. That one's specific for law firms, but it's every business. And then it talks about compliance too. It's basically what we covered.
All right, very good. Does anyone have any questions about their own environment or something else that they'd like to know for themselves? Jonathan, you're welcome. Anything else that they would like to know? Any other information they would like to roughly confront their IT department with?
Yeah, actually, if you want,
accuse them of not having their act together.
Yeah, if you want, actually, what I can do is I can show you masked reports. So I'll do just for, let's see. So the report that, okay, so let me show you an example, right? So, all right, so this is my company. It's pretty darn clean, which is good. So this is our dark web report. And you see here, this red one, the ones that are red, I can show. I'm not going to show you, but the ones in red, I can see those. The ones that are encrypted, are not actually, those are encrypted passwords anyway. But my point was, if you want to email me your company's domain, like your company's domain, email me. Let me put it in the chat. I'll send you a masked dark web report, just reminding me, hey, I saw you here. Let me put my email in here. Hey, I saw you on the HR webinar. Please send me my company's dark web report, right? So just copy and paste that kind of thing, just so I remember. I'm not going to do it today. I'll probably do it next week, but I'll send you the dark web report for your company with the passwords masked, and you could technically send that to your whole organization, and then no, your information cannot be removed from the dark web, Michelle. Michelle's question was, can information be removed from the dark web? Unfortunately, the answer is no.
Esther has a question. Esther said, in terms of security, what are your thoughts about using RDP to connect to a network instead of a VPN?
You're probably using a VPN to connect to the network anyway, and without RDP, without a VPN setup is not that common. So I would assume that you're probably doing both, but certainly you absolutely need to have a VPN set up to connect to a network, without a doubt, regardless of how you're connecting to it. And by the way, the most popular project that we've been doing over the last 2 years because of COVID is virtual desktops in the cloud, nonstop, right? So imagine you have all these people in your offices and you remember your firewall is your VPN, right? So a couple people were remoting into the office at a time. All of a sudden that went from a couple people to all the people. Those are not the same types of firewalls and VPNs, right? So those firewalls and VPNs need to be able to handle a lot more traffic into the network. And you need more, faster internet, better internet at home, this, that, and the other thing. So a lot of our clients, et cetera, what they would do is, if they also needed to do a computer refresh at the same time, right? Instead of buying laptops for 100 people, let's open up virtual desktops in Microsoft Azure's cloud. You'll have the desktops in the cloud. You'll have the servers in the cloud. Everything will be in Microsoft's cloud. Everything will be secure. You don't have to spend the money on all that hardware, right? And you don't have to worry about VPNs, and it's faster, right? So that's an example.
Yeah, and so I'm just popping in the chat window here. If you have,
yeah, the dark web record, I need you to email me that,
yeah,
and I'll do it next week.
Email Danny if you want to have him send you that sort of masked dark web report. Anyone else, if you have something you think of afterwards, you can email Danny. You can email me, and I will get it to Danny as well, and we'll be sending out a little follow-up to this with some other information in here, and just to make sure that everyone following up has Danny's contact information. And yeah, we held on to just about everyone through the entire presentation. You kept everybody riveted. We have another question here. Let's see what we have.
And Paul.
Is there vulnerability using Chromebooks? Is there vulnerability using Chromebooks? All the same things. And Paul, if you want me to tell you your password, I got it pretty quickly. I'm assuming you're Paul F at BFL. So it's I don't know if it's your mother or your daughter, but don't use that name anymore in any passwords at all, Paul. There you go. Paul. There you go, Paul.
I'll chat you privately. Yeah, don't use that name anymore. I think it only went to Paul. But regardless, you can't use that name anymore. It's all over the place. Okay.
All right. Well, listen. Anyone who did not receive their invitation directly from me, who would like to be on our regular distribution list for future HR roundtable presentations, please send me, please just send me your email, and I'll make sure that you end up on our distribution list. Any of your colleagues in your company that you would like to have be a part of the HR roundtable, send those along as well. The more the merrier, and happy to have everyone. Danny, thank you so much for taking time today, especially from a foreign country, to give us this terrific presentation. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you
And
for having me. My pleasure. Anytime.
there you go. I thank you all. Everyone have a great day. Stay warm. We got some snow and everything and ice on the way, but the daylight hours are getting longer and longer. And the switch over from daylight savings time is right around the corner. And so there, I will be the first one to wish you an almost happy spring. Get out
Thank
there,
you so much for having me.
Get a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Walter, take us out.